of fun, Jensen, as you get a little bit older. Worlds collide. You and I get to do this great show every day. You work with Jim Bowden. I covered Jim Bowden when he was the GM back in his days in Washington, D.C. Very interesting man, and certainly always has a lot of different things on his mind. And maybe looking at different areas in this Tarek Skubal sweepstakes than most people are. We know that the Dodgers are the favorites to get the prized left-hander from Detroit. But Jim has an interesting theory and maybe a surprise team that we're not talking enough about.
If he's traded, which I don't know, Scott Harris doesn't know. I don't know if he's going to be traded, but if he is, I will tell you this right now. I think the Brewers are the most likely landing spot. I'll rank them 1, Dodgers 2, Braves 3, Tampa 4 in that order. The Brewers farm system is as good as any team out there that's trying to get him. They also have so much depth. When you talk about the best prospect in baseball, it's Jesus Made. He's not going anywhere. But they got Luis Pena, too, who's 19 years old, has got a chance to be a superstar, and he'd be the #1 prospect in most organizations. You can afford to deal him if you want to because you have Made, you have Cooper Pratt, you have enough. You can give them a starter to go back in Brandon Sproat, who you picked up for Peralta, who was a rental. So no problem putting him back in. And then you can sweeten the pot with maybe Tyson Harden, the pitcher, maybe Andrew Fisher, the third baseman. You have enough there. And remember this, Mark Antanasio, the owner in 2008, made the deal for CC Sabathia, gave them a shot to win a World Series. They didn't do it, but gave him a shot. Mark Antanasio has told Matt Arnold, green light, go do it. I'm ready. Here we go.
Oh, absolutely love it. Hated the Brandon Sproat part because they stole the Mets in that deal for Freddie Peralta. But the point is, Jensen, right, they've made some good moves that gives them some maneuverability here to get into this Tarek Skubal sweepstakes with what they've accrued now in the minor league system. And I love the CC Sabathia comparison because it does kind of feel like once every decade and a half, the Brewers do something that maybe other people don't see coming, but I think it's clearly on Bowden's radar.
I had told you that I hoped that it would be either the Rays or the Brewers that end up making this become a reality. And the Rays also have an excellent farm system from which to deal from. And to that end, I think you're going to see, the potential of, think of Skubal, McClanahan, Rasmussen for the Rays. Think about, Skubal, Mizorowski, it's probably Mizorowski, Skubal, and then Kyle Harrison, getting back into this rotation. Logan Henderson, especially the last couple of weeks, has been outstanding. And Logan Henderson got the opportunity because of the injury to Brandon Woodruff. The Brewers do everything well. The only thing the Brewers don't do well, they're dead last in homers. They do everything else exceptionally well. You add Skubal there, not that they would be the favorite, but that's as close to a coin flip I think you could get if it's the Dodgers and it's the Brewers because of the question marks that surround the Dodger lineup right now, Dave. The injury and the knee inflammation for Ohtani, keeping him indefinitely off the mound. Still the injury with Will Smith. We don't know timelines firmly of Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow. You have issues in the lineup with those guys in Freeman and Betts getting older. Back end of that lineup has some question marks as well. I don't want to say they're extremely vulnerable because Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes will be doing something at this deadline to bolster that offense, if not the offense and the pitching staff. But man, oh man, if you're the Brewers and you make this happen, that is an absolute shot across the bow to say that not only are we for real, but we feel that we are the team to beat.
I thought you had a very interesting comment to Mike Palm in the last hour, and that was you really can't take the Cubs seriously in the postseason unless they go make a move for a frontline starter like a Skubal. Now, maybe there could be a secondary move like a Casey Mize. Who knows, right? That could change that opinion. But to that end, with the Cubs being 6 games behind the Brewers, and if Jim Bowden is correct, and he ranks the Brewers as the top team, not the Dodgers, to get Skubal in the betting market to win the World Series. And we just talked about this with Mike. It's crazy. The Dodgers are priced at a plus $1.90 to do a three-peat. The Brewers are 9-1. And the Cubs are 15-1. Would you be willing to take a shot at one of those other 2 National League teams with the hope that even if it's not Skubal, it's still somebody else that could be a 1A or at least a 1B in the Skubal sweepstakes to make that number palatable. Could you get on board with a 9-1 Brewers or a Cubs 15-1 to win the World Series?
If you're going double digits, I'd go the Braves. The Braves at 11-1 would be the team, just because they don't have much farther to go. They just got A.J. Smith-Shawver back. They're hoping for Spencer Schwellenbach later here in potentially August, if not September. That's a team, too, that you have to keep your eye on for Skubal. Skubal, Chris Sale, now we're in business, okay? In that offense, way better now with Ronald Acuna Jr. back, decidedly different. Don't forget about the Braves, man. 11-1, and I joked with you yesterday on our typical cross-board parlay opportunities here. Looking at like a Cameron Young for a top 20 this week at the Rocket Classic, and then the Braves to win the World Series. That gets them up to 17-1. There's ways to be creative about it. Heck, if you want to even take a Wyndham Clark with the Braves, that gets you to 19-1. So there are ways to make this thing even higher odds-wise. But if you're giving me double digits right now, I would take the Braves.
Very interesting. By the way, we saw Chris Sale yesterday. Met fans did. We saw enough of him. He looked really good. I want to stay with some of the slates in the new series starting today. Look, what the Marlins did in the last 3 days is remarkable. This was a team on a 12-game losing skid. They had fallen a couple games under 500, and all of a sudden they had gone from about plus 250 to make the postseason to about 10-1. And then they get one of the more improbable sweeps of the Phillies, 2 ridiculous comebacks, including yesterday down 6-0 to come back and win this thing. And they get that sweep, and now they're back over 500. They're going to play my lowly Mets here in New York. And I said this at the end of last year. They ruined the Mets season at the end of the year last year. You don't have to ruin it this year. It's already ruined. Where are you in the Fighting Fish? There's maybe a little bit more fight in these guys. And the Phillies all of a sudden 3-9 since the All-Star break, Jensen. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming or had that in their bingo card.
Totally agree. And just kind of looking at some of the ones that stand out, and you talked about it, the Phillies are definitely going to have to be making some moves here at the deadline. Fortunately, it sounds like the Zach Wheeler issue. Remember that start? He left early. That was more with a stomach bug, and we were all kind of holding our breath there because the velo was down. And you're fearing the worst, of course, about the arm issue. So it sounds like that was just a health-related as far as maybe some bad chow down there in South Beach. It has happened before. I think the Marlins continue to defy everyone's expectations. Remember, Dave, this has been a cash cow at home. The Marlins have been one of the best home teams in all of the National League this year. They're 34-23. Only the Brewers in the National League have more home wins than the Miami Marlins do at 36-20. Now, Miami on the road, as you said, against your Mets, Nolan McLean, Yuri Perez, might be a sneaky spot to back the Mets here, but I won't touch this game until I see some lineups later on today. What I will do, I'm going straight for the top game of the day, at least the first one on the docket. Series finale down at Tropicana Field. Shane McClanahan against the Texas Rangers. Cole Winn going to get the start. Dave, this is a 3-unit play. -1 on the alternate run line at plus $1.09 back in the Rays at home. We'll absolutely take this team. Speaking of home dominance, how about 25-13? The Rays are covering the run line as a home favorite. And Shane McClanahan in 9 starts at the Trop this year, 7-1, a $1.88 ERA. It just lines up really almost too good to be true. I will hammer the Rays to get this one done after shutting out the Rangers yesterday.
Love it. I'll be back in that play with you as well. Let's follow your lead on that Rays pick today. Hey, I wanted to ask you about this. I mentioned it earlier in the program. We heard comments from Bryce Harper after that loss and when they get swept away by the Fighting Fish. And he basically said, if those that haven't heard the comments, I'll paraphrase, we need help. We got to make moves at the trade deadline. You got to go get us some help. Now, Donnie Baseball, who's done a great job, flipping this script here in Philadelphia, well, it's his son that's part of as the assistant GM in that front office. And then Don Mattingly basically came back and paraphrasing there said, when you say stuff like that, you're basically denigrating one of your teammates, saying you got to go replace somebody. Jensen, how does something like this play out when you have a star player in Bryce Harper actively questioning what the front office is doing or what they're not doing?
So for the hierarchy, for people that don't know, Preston Mattingly, son of Don Mattingly, is the general manager there in Philadelphia. It is Dave Dombrowski, president of baseball operations. But you're coming, you attack the Cubs. Usually it's Mama Bear that's going to get you first, but now you PO Papa Bear. That one should have stayed in house. You should have addressed that. I'm sure that on the off day here, they will take care of what they need to. Philly's got to go get some help, though, offensively. The big three have carried them, and Schwarber, Harper, and Marsh. Trey Turner, much better here to start the second half. Dave Dombrowski is going to make moves. He's an all-in kind of guy. Won't be shocked if that happens again here over the weekend.
Yeah, we're not saying that Bryce is wrong. We're just saying that's not something you say with a microphone in front of your face there in the clubhouse. That's something you keep internally and you talk to Don Mattingly about one-on-one.